Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janaballabha Girivaradhari. Jaya Gopi Janaballabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Om Snapad Paramahansa, Parajikacharya Ashtotar with the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBD Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa, Parajikacharya Ashtotar with the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. So today being the appearance day or disappearance day of Sri Jagadish Pandit, we'll read a little bit about him. There's not much, I think, in this Samadhi's book. Sorry, I didn't cue it up. There he is. Jagadish Pandit was the savior of the world. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It doesn't say exactly where in the CC. Jagadish Pandit was the savior of the world. He was a monsoon cloud of Krishna prema, pouring showers of mercy upon everyone. Close quote. Jagadish Pandit and his brother Mahesh lived near Jagannath Mishra in Sridham Mayapur. One Ekadashi day, baby Nimai was crying constantly. He stopped after taking Mahaprasadam rice in Jagadish Pandit's home. Then Nimai performed a miracle. So this is Ekadashi, and they served rice to the deity. So let's see what happens. Then Nimai performed a miracle. Jagadish Pandit swooned in ecstasy upon seeing baby Gauranga manifest a beautiful form with a monsoon cloud blue complexion, shining like lightning, and adorned with a shimmering peacock feather. Okay. After moving to Sri Chaitra Dham, Jagannath Puri, Lord Gaurachandra asked Jagadish to come help spread the Hari Nam Sankirtan movement. Taking Lord Jagannath's permission, Jagadish Pandit took a deity of Jagannath back to Nadia to worship in his village of Yasore. In Krishna's Nitya Leela, Jagadish Pandit serves as the dancer Chandrahasa, or a Nagapatni, wife of Kaliya. Hare Krishna, Shri Jagadish Pandit Ki Jai. And now, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nasta Prayasha Bandreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavad-Yuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nasta Prayasha Bandreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavad-Yuttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service unto the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Okay, I did Om Namo already. So, now just to let you know, we're studying this verse, 7.5.23. And 24 is listed there. We'll get into that in a minute. This is the famous verse listing that Prahlad Maharaj is listing the 9 processes of devotional service. And it has the longest purport in the Bhagavatam by far. There's like a purport on every single one of these 9. So we are now on Smaranam. And we'll skip to that after we read the translation of this verse and the next verse, which you don't have up there. And then we'll go on. Shri Pararuvacha. Shri Pararuvacha Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Parasevanam Archanam Bandhanam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedanam Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Parasevanam Archanam Bandhanam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedanam Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Parasevanam Archanam Bandhanam Dasyam Sakyam Atma Nivedanam. You can skip Pararuvacha. Chant. Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Bandhanam Dasyam Sakyam Nivedanam Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Bandhanam Dasyam Sakyam Nivedanam Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Bandhanam Dasyam Sakyam Nivedanam Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Bandhanam Dasyam Sakyam Nivedanam. Ladies? Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu Smaranam Padasevanam Archanam Bandhanam Dasyam Sakyam Nivedanam. All right, let's do this word by words again on this one. Shravanam, hearing. Kirtanam, chanting. Vishnu, of Lord Vishnu. Not anyone else. Put it right in the synonyms. Smaranam, remembering. Padasevanam, serving the feet. Archanam, offering worship. With the 16 kinds of paraphernalia. Vandanam, offering prayers. Dasyam, becoming the servant. Sakyam, becoming the best friend. Atmanivedanam, surrendering everything, whatever one has. Iti, I'm sorry, that's the next one. That's the next verse. Okay, translation. I'll give the translation in 2 verses. Translation. Prahlad Maharaj said, hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and pastimes of Lord Vishnu, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming his servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, and surrendering everything unto him. In other words, serving him with the body, mind, and words. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. One who has dedicated his life to the service of Krishna through these 9 methods should be understood to be the most learned person, for he has acquired complete knowledge. So, as I mentioned, this is the longest purport in the Bhagavatam, over 20 verses, 20 pages. And we have gone through hearing and chanting. I think we had 2 sessions on chanting, but anyway, we're now on Smaranam, remembering. So I will skip to that section and begin reading there. There's an extensive treatment of each one, and Srila Prabhupada, I think, is quoting from his spiritual master. A lot of this is from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's commentary also. Okay, forgive me, I should have. Okay, that's 2. All right, and 3. Krishna. Smaranam. After one regularly performs the processes of hearing and chanting, and after the core of one's heart is cleansed, Smaranam, remembering, is recommended. In Srimad Bhagavatam 2.1.11, Shukadeva Goswami tells King Pariksit, Etanne vijamananam ichchatam akatobhayam yoginam napadhinitam hare namanukirtanam. O King, for great yogis who have completely renounced all material connections, for those who desire all material enjoyment, and for those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord is recommended. Close quote. According to different relationships with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there are varieties of namanukirtanam, chanting of the holy name, and thus according to different relationships and mellows, there are 5 kinds of remembering. These are as follows. A. Conducting research into the worship of a particular form of the Lord. B. Concentrating the mind on one subject and withdrawing the mind's activities of thinking, feeling, and willing from all other subjects. C. Concentrating upon a particular form of the Lord. This is called meditation. D. Concentrating one's mind continuously on the form of the Lord. This is called dhruvanusmriti, or perfect meditation. And E. Awakening a likening for concentration upon a particular form. This is called samadhi or trance. Mental concentration upon particular pastimes of the Lord in particular circumstances is also called remembrance. Therefore, samadhi or trance can be possible in 5 different ways in terms of one's relationship. Specifically, the trance of devotees on the stage of neutrality is called mental concentration. Okay, so I'm also going to read a purport from the Nectar of Instruction, the 8th verse. The whole Nectar of Instruction is the essence of all instruction, right? And this verse is also said, this is the essence of the instruction. So let me just read that and then we'll discuss. Okay. So I'll just read the English translation. The essence of all advice is that one should utilize one's full time, 24 hours a day, in nicely chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name, transcendental form, qualities, and eternal pastimes, thereby gradually engaging one's tongue and mind. In this way, one should reside in Braja, Goloka Vrindavan Dham, and serve Krishna under the guidance of devotees. One should follow in the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotees who are deeply attached to his devotional service. Purport. Since the mind may be one's enemy or one's friend, one has to train the mind to become his friend. The Krishna consciousness movement is especially meant for training the mind to be always engaged in Krishna's business. The mind contains hundreds and thousands of impressions, not only of this life, but also of many, many lives of the past. These impressions sometimes come in contact with one another and produce contradictory pictures. In this way, the mind's function can become dangerous for a conditioned soul. Students of psychology are aware of the mind's various psychological changes. Now Srila Prabhupada quotes the famous verse from the Bhagavad Gita, which tells us what the importance of remembering Krishna at every moment. Those who know the verse can chant along. Yang bapi smarang bhavam chajat jante kalevadam tam tame vaiti konteya sadatad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Prabhupada continues, at the time of death, the mind and intelligence of a living entity create the subtle form of a certain type of body for the next life. If the mind suddenly thinks of something not very congenial, one has to take a corresponding birth in the next life. On the other hand, if one can think of Krishna at the time of death, he can be transferred to the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan. This process of transmigration is very subtle. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami advises devotees to train their minds in order that they will be able to remember anything, they will be unable to remember anything other than Krishna. Similarly, the tongue should be trained to speak only of Krishna and to taste only Krishna prasadam. Srila Rupa Goswami further advises, Tishtan Vraje, this is from the verse on the discussion here, text 8. One should live in Vrindavan or any part of Brajabhumi. Brajabhumi, or the land of Vrindavan, is said to be 84 kroshas in area. 1 krosha is 2 square miles. When one makes Vrindavan his residence, he should take shelter of an advanced devotee there. In this way, one should always think of Krishna and his pastimes. This is further elucidated by Srila Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.294. Krishnam smaram janam chasya preshnam nijasamihitam tat tat kata ratas chaso kuryad vasam vrajesada. The devotee should always reside in the transcendental realm of Braja and always engage in Krishnam Smaram Janam Chasya Preshtam, the remembrance of Sri Krishna and his beloved associates. By following in the footsteps of such associates and by entering under their eternal guidance, one can acquire an intense desire to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Again, Srila Rupa Goswami states in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.2.295, next verse, Seva saraka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tad bhava lipsuna karya vrajalokanusarataha. In the transcendental realm of Brajadam, one should serve the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna with a feeling similar to that of his associates, and one should place himself under the direct guidance of a particular associate of Krishna and should follow in his footsteps. This method is applicable both in the stage of sadhana, spiritual practices executed while in the stage of bondage, and in the stage of sadhya, God realization, when one is a siddha purush, or a spiritually perfect soul. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented as follows upon this verse. One who has not yet developed interest in Krishna consciousness should give up all material motives and train his mind by following the progressive regulative principles, namely chanting and remembering Krishna, and his name, form, qualities, pastimes, and so forth. In this way, after developing a taste for such things, one should try to live in Vrindavan and pass his time constantly remembering Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, and qualities, under the direction and protection of an expert devotee. This is the sum and substance of all instruction regarding the cultivation of devotional service. In the neophyte stage, one should always engage in hearing Krishna Katha. This is called Shravana Dasha, the stage of hearing. By constantly hearing the transcendental holy name of Krishna and hearing of his transcendental form, qualities, and pastimes, one can attain to the stage of acceptance called Varana Dasha. That's Varana Dasha. Not Shravana Dasha. When one attains the stage, Dasha means stage, this stage he becomes attached to the hearing of Krishna Katha. When one is able to chant in ecstasy, he attains the stage of Smaranavastha, the stage of remembering. Recollection, absorption, meditation, constant remembrance, and trance are the 5 items of progressive Krishna Smarana, remembrance of Krishna. At first, remembrance of Krishna may be interrupted at intervals, but later remembrance proceeds uninterrupted. When remembrance is uninterrupted, it becomes concentrated and is called meditation. When meditation expands and becomes constant, it is called anusmriti. By uninterrupted and unceasing anusmriti, one enters the stage of samadhi, or spiritual trance. After smarana dasha, or samadhi, has fully developed, the soul comes to understand his original constitutional position. At that time, he can perfectly and clearly understand his eternal relationship with Krishna. That is called sampatti dasha, the perfection of life. Continuing to quote from Bhaktisiddhanta, Chaitanya Charitamrita advises those who are neophytes to give up all kinds of motivated desires and simply engage in the regulative devotional service of the Lord according to the directions of Scripture. In this way, a neophyte can gradually develop attachment for Krishna's name, fame, form, qualities, and so forth. When one has developed such attachment, he can spontaneously serve the lotus feet of Krishna even without following the regulative principles. This stage is called Raga Bhakti. Now, the regulative principle doesn't mean the 4 regs. It's just it's the strict, in other words, he's spontaneously serving. This stage is called Raga Bhakti, or devotional service in spontaneous love. At that stage, the devotee can follow in the footsteps of one of the eternal associates of Krishna in Vrindavan. This is called Raganuga Bhakti. Raganuga Bhakti, or spontaneous devotional service, can be executed in the Shanta Ras, when one aspires to be like Krishna's cows, or the stick or flute in the hand of Krishna, or the flowers around Krishna's neck. In Dasya Ras, one follows in the footsteps of servants like Chitraka, Patraka, and Raktaka. In the friendly Sakya Ras, one can become a friend like Baladev, Sridama, or Sudama. In Vatsalya Ras, characterized by parental affection, one can become like Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda. And in the Madhurya Ras, characterized by conjugal love, one can become like Srimati Radharani, or her lady friends such as Lalita, or her serving maids, Manjuris, like Rupa and Rati. This is the essence of all instruction in the matter of devotional service. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance to him and all members of Sri Parampara. So the reason I read that is because this is about remembrance. That we're on the remembrance, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. And remembrance is really what it's all about, what we're trying to accomplish. What is that? Smartavyak satatam Vishnu vismartavyo najatu chit. Sarva vidi nishedaksyur eteyor eva kinkara. What this means, smarta means remembrance. Of who? Vishnu. And in the translation of this verse, Prabhupada immediately says, Krishna is the original Vishnu. So this means always remembering Krishna. Always remembering Krishna and never forgetting him. Vismartavi means to forget. Najatu chit, never, at no point. Sarva vidi nisheda ksur eteyor eva kinkara. So vidi and nisheda are what Prabhupada called rules and regulations. One is positive, one is negative. The do's and don'ts. As we all know, if you want to practice Krishna consciousness seriously, there are certain things that you have to accept and to do that you may not want to do and you're not spontaneously attracted, like first is getting up early, really early, and so many others. And then there are things that you don't do, for regular principles, etc. So this is the Vidi and the Nisheda. And he says, all of them are servants. Sarva Vidi Nisheda Etayoreva Kinkara. Kinkara means menial servants of this basic principle of always remembering Krishna. Just I mean, it's very intuitive. You're chanting Hare Krishna, and the mind is wandering, you bring it back. Mind is wandering, bring it back. You try to hear like it. And you can see that if you're actually hearing the holy name nicely, you're remembering Krishna. How could you not be remembering Krishna? And not only that, but other things that you read about Krishna. First of all, you understand this is Krishna is personally there in the holy name. That's another incredible thing that is inconceivable. The verse about it ends in that word. Abhinna. Binna means separate. Abhinna means not separate. It's related to achincha, beta. So the holy name is not separate from Krishna. That means when we're really hearing the holy name with great attention and devotion, we're associating with Krishna. We're getting Krishna's association. That's why it's so purifying. Krishna himself, just like the sun, it's described, a wonderful analogy. There's maybe some dirty place on the earth, some dog passed urine or whatever. But then it's the sun shines, then it becomes purified. But the sun doesn't at all become contaminated. So similarly, any kind of association with Krishna, where we're conscious, then the consciousness is purified. Cheto, darpana, marjanam. That's the first step, right? In the Dharma of the age is Sankirtan, congregational chanting. So that remembrance, that which can facilitate our nicely chanting, not letting the mind wander, of course, and not doing all these other things which will be distracting when we sit down to chant. In other words, following the basic do's and don'ts and principles of devotional service, then the result of our following that nicely will be nice chanting, where we really can hear nicely and we're experiencing because the holy name is very potent, as I'm sure we've all experienced to some degree. Whatever advancement or Krishna consciousness we have is rooted in our chanting the holy name. And I don't know if you know this, but the very last verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam talks about Nam Sankirtan. Nama Sankirtam Yasya Sarva Papa Manashanam Pranamo. I forget the rest of that. You remember that one? Anyway, it says, Nama Sankirtam Yasya, I bow down to him, Krishna, the congregational chanting of whose name destroys all sinful reaction. Nama Sankirtam Sarva Papa Panashanam. Pranamo Yasya, and the bowing down to whom produces all advancement in devotional service. So that the last verses are very important. That's like when we read the Bhagavad Gita. It's not the very last verse, but it's the very last instruction. Sarva dharma parityaja mame kamshtaranam bhaja. Right? I'll give up all of the dharmas, just surrender unto me. I will protect you from any sinful reactions. You'll come to me. So this verse, the reason why I read it, this is one of the books that Srila Prabhupada gave us. This all sounds very up here, right? He's describing Raga Anuga Bhakti. Everyone says Raganuga, but it's Raga Anuga. Means following in the footsteps of one of Krishna's intimate associates who was on the stage of Ragatmika Bhakti. There's a distinction between Ragatmika Bhakti is what all the devotees in Goloka Vrindavan are engaging with Krishna. Completely full of love, not a pinch of personal desire, simply meditating on Krishna, trying to make him pleased. As Jiva Goswami has immortally said, Bhajaniya Padama Purusha Sukhamatra Sasukatvam. This is a short form of Anyabhilashi Das Shunyam verse. Bhajaniya Padama Purusha, the worshipable Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sukhamatra, only His happiness is Sasukatvam, is my happiness. That's pure devotion. Now is only things that make me happy are my happiness, you know. There's some love and concern for others, but basically we're self-centered. This is the false ego. So here, now this verse comes, of course, there's a progression in this. This is the essence of all advice, and it starts out with really, who should you choose as a spiritual master? That first verse is about who can deliver everyone in the world, right? Vacho vegam, manasakrodha vegam, jihva vegam, hunaropesta vegam, etan vegam, yopashaheta dira, savamapimang patavinta shishyat. Isn't it? Those who can, someone who can, we should try to, you know, achieve this also. But he's describing vacho vegam, the urge to speak, so powerful. I remember when I first read this, I think I was living in New York in the big temple in 79, 80, 80 when I got to live in the fabled 56th Street, you know, temple. And so, you know, sometimes I would ride the bus, you get around New York, and everybody is there who has a companion, they're all jabbering away, you know, talk. And it's just what happens, there's an urge to speak. And it's perfectly epitomized in the Tower of Babel called the Internet. Isn't it? I mean, how many words on there, how many expressions, how many things, and it's not just words, you know, the images are just totally contaminating. They're just totally distracting. You know, it's critical. It's much harder to practice devotional service now, since the advent of the smartphone and all of this stuff, and everybody's mind is distracted. You're never alone, you know, and you always have to worry, what are they saying about me, right? Isn't that a big thing? So, but that's vacho vegam. And also the urges of the mind and the urges of anger. Vacho jiva vegam, then physically, the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals, you know, Prabhupada points out they're in a straight line, you know, if you can't control your tongue, then you're going to get agitated, it's going to be very difficult to practice. So you say you find someone who is in complete control of these six, then you can make disciples all over the world. So what's nice now, think about this, because if you're serious about becoming a devotee, then you want to find the right guru. Right? A trustworthy guru you can take shelter of, who's right in the line of our acharyas, Srila Prabhupada. So these things you can practically see. In other words, you don't know exactly what's in the mind of an individual who you're considering, but if they're, you know, exhibiting any of the lack of control of these things, anger, you know, and all whatever, then you say, okay, it doesn't meet that criteria. You see. So, of course, there's others described, but that's what the first verse is about. Then it goes, what is the next one? Oh yeah, of course, atyahara priyasascha. What are the impediments? It's just like in the sixfold Ashtanga yoga process, there's like, or eightfold, right? You start with yama and niyama, right? Yama and niyama. Yama is the don'ts, niyama is the do's. You can't start doing something until you stop doing everything, which is a gross impediment to it. You have to stop, you know, stop eating meat, stop, you know, and then come into the association of devotees. Right? So the yama niyama is there, and atyahara, overeating, overcollecting. Overeating, these are the things that are impediments. Atyahara priyasascha, hard work and mental, you know, engagement in getting something material. This is priyasa. Prajalpo, nonsense talk. Hearing it or talking it or repeating it. It's such a distraction. Our whole principle is based on sound, on the words, the holy words of the Hare Krishna mantra and all of these wonderful shastras that Prabhupada has given us, which we can repeat, we can discuss. You know, I love to hear you're having a reading up in 10. That's great. Devotees are reading Prabhupada's books together. This is the best way to associate. So you're taking shelter. You're hearing the proper things, you know. That means that Prajalpa is not happening, right? And so that, of course, that's tied in with the urge to speak, So prajalpo, niyamagraha. Now these six come in, these are six, but they break into 8. And the niyamagraha has 2 meanings. One is neglecting to come to the regular programs of devotional service, or coming but not really being present, just going through the motions, not putting your heart into it. Now one eventually leads to the other, obviously. You can't just fake it for very long. After a while, I say, what am I doing here? And you leave. But that's also dangerous. You have to bring your full attention and try to enter. Like, for instance, that's why I always encourage everyone. You all have an opportunity to learn the word, what the words mean in everything that we sing in the morning. The Gurvashtaka prayers, the Tulsi prayers. We say the English out loud. I was in temples at one point where we would also do a translation of the Gurvashtaka. That also helps. But there's so much Sanskrit and Bengali flowing, and sometimes it just goes over your head. But if you take the trouble to learn, then everything, even when we sing the disappearance song, there's so many things, then it becomes much more meaningful experience, because the meaning of the words is really what counts. I mean, Prabhupada spent so much trouble translating the Shastra and giving us word-for-word meanings, because first of all, the power of the sound of the mantras. He said, even if you don't understand the meaning, still repeat, we do in the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam classes. But it's so much a richer experience when you learn the meanings. There's a series of classes Prabhupada gave in Japan, I think, just after he left LA in late 70. And he was with a few devotees, and they were studying the beginning of the 2nd canto. Now those who read the Bhagavatam, the Bhagavatam kind of starts again at the beginning of the 2nd canto. There's even Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, because that's when Shukadev starts speaking. The first canto has very important instruction, don't get me wrong. But it's an introductory book to how the book got, and then Pariksit sits down on the bank of the Ganges, or on the bank of the Yamuna, and Shukadev comes, and then it starts. And so those verses are very important. I like to point out, some of you may have heard, that Bhagavatam is filled with little lessons, some complete lessons, that if you just study like this first canto, 2nd chapter, text 6 to text 21, there's a full lesson there in Bhakti. And Prabhupada lectured on each of those verses, more than once, many times. And so I had the idea, I forget when it was, I was in LA, probably the when was I in LA? Yeah. I forget when it was, it could have been the 70s. Anyway, I had the idea, let's make a book of this. Just like we made a book of Queen Kunti's teachings. What does that consist of? Prabhupada's lectures on Queen Kunti's prayers. So you get the verse, you get the purport, then you get selected excerpts from his talks, filling out the purport. So it becomes a beautiful book. Same thing with teachings of Kapila Dev. So I had the idea, why don't we do this for this? And it became a book called Dharma, the Way of Transcendence. Now, one works along on book production. I realize now how really important is the title that you pick. Dharma, the Way of Transcendence doesn't resonate so much with your average American, but does more with Indians. I think they distribute it. They've got it in print there. They've been distributing it a lot. So, and Srila Prabhupada, in this instance, in the second, when he's giving these lectures, he wanted the devotees, there was only a handful there, many were leading devotees, to memorize the verses. There are like 6 or 8 of them in the lesson at the beginning of the 2nd canto. You can read it. When you see a verse in the Bhagavatam, begins with the word etavat, or a variant of that, you should look at that verse. Those verses are often very, very important. Just like you have Krishna is a etavat janma sapalyam. Etavat janma sapalyam. You know that one? We got to learn. Sapalyam. Dehinam iha dehishu. Prana ata diyavacha. Shreya acharanam sada. Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm getting old. I got to review these verses. But he's walking. This is after he steals the whole chapter is like, there's 2 different tastes there. One is he's stealing the garments of the gopis. Then it says sometime later, like months later. It's not done the same day. It's in the winter. The stealing goes in the winter. When the Katyaya, the Vatra is over, it's wintertime, right? We just had it a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, so they're taking bath in the wintertime, praying for the God Krishna. So then he comes there with some friends, very young friends, and steals the garments. Then it says sometime later, like months later, in the spring, he's walking with his friends in the forest, and he's praising the trees. How glorious are the trees. What are the trees famous for especially? Yeah, giving shade. But how Trinadapi Sundhi Tolerance. Tolerance. And not only are they tolerant, he points out, they're very generous. They're giving shade, as he mentioned, they're giving their wood, they're giving fruits and flowers and everything. And they don't complain. So he's praying. Then he says, this verse, if you want to make your birth fruitful, any human being, sapala is a fruit. Then, and who is he speaking? Dehinam ihadehishu. Then for any embodied soul can help other embodied souls with his prana atadiyavasha, with your life force, with your wealth, with your intelligence and your words, help them get to Shreya, the ultimate good. This is a preacher's verse. This is like a Sankirtan verse. This is what Prabhupada did with his life force, with everything he had. He had his $9. That was all he had in terms of money coming across. But he had his life, and his intelligence, which had been manifested in his books, and of course his devotion. So he came and he showed how you can make your life perfect that way. It begins with Etavan. In the second canto, at the beginning, there's this famous section there where Sukadeva praises the question of Parikshit Maharaj. What should one do? What should one think of? What should he hear as death approaches? He's got notice. He's got 7 days to live, right? So how to use that time? We don't know we even have 7 days, Prabhupada would point out. We also should feel the urgency of using every moment. Avyata kalat bam, that's his principle of ecstasy Rupa Goswami gives. So, first he praises the question, very good. Then he says, Shrotavyadini Rajanya Ninang Santi Sahasrasha Apashyatamatra Griheshu Grihamedinam. This is the Prajalpa in this were void. He says, there are millions of subject matters. I immediately think of the internet, There's millions of things. Ninang says Sahasra. Apashyatam Atma Tattvam, those who are blind to the truth of the soul, Griheshu Grihamedinam, those who are enmeshed in materialistic household life. Then what is their activity? Nidriyasriyate naktam bibayena chabhavayak divad chartahe rajan kutumbam baranenava. So during the night, they're wasting their time. Too much sleeping or illicit sex. During the day, they're running around, trying to get money. Where is money? Where is money? And in the afternoon, I heard Prabhupada say this one time as a translation, they're shopping, during the weekend. Kutumbam, in order to support the kutumba, that's the household, the kids and everything. That's it. Now, they're very aware that this is they're not secure because they know their grandfather died and everything. All right. So they have various soldiers to protect themselves. Deha, Putta, Karatradish, Atma Sainyeshu means soldiers to protect themselves. Asatvapi. But all these soldiers are asatsu. They're also fallible soldiers. The body is so delicate and fragile. What's that going to do when real danger comes? It's an illusion. But then I have my family, I'm beginning with the wife, I put your kalatra, and relatives, and etc. And then you can have insurance policies and everything, This will protect me. Illusion. Atma sainyusha asatsu api tesham pramatto nidadam pashyan apina pashyati. Although they see that all these soldiers have died in the past, no one's been protected, everyone dies, still they see but they don't see. This pashyan apina pashyati. They're physically seeing, but it's not registering, you see. So then he starts gives a solution. So what should you do? Tasmad Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari Shrotavyak, hearing, Kirtitavyak, chanting, Smartavyak, remembering, Chechitabayam. If you want fearlessness at the time of death, because fearlessness means that you're attached to the body, you know. So if you want fearlessness and that's success, then here's what you do. Etavad. This is the words. Now listen. Etavad. How does it? Etavad. What is it? No, that's the other one. That's the other Etavad. Oh, Bharata. Etavad Bharata. Whether you so anyway, what he's saying is you should always hear, chant, and remember about the Bhagavan Ishvaro Hari. Shrotavya. Bhagavan Ishvara, he gives it. Bhagavan, Supreme Person, Ishvara, Supreme Controller, Hari. In case you didn't get it the first time, three names he gives for Krishna. There's no doubt who you should think of. So what should you do? Hear about him, and chant about him, and remember. Shrotavyak is smartavyak chechitabayam. If you want fearlessness at the time of death. If you really perfected it, there's no fear. We've even had examples of our own associates here. I always think of Rajendranandan Prabhu and Shamali. Yamuna was right there when she left, you know, and he was saying how, you know, she was just completely free of, it was completely relaxed. It was just like the Vaikuntha plane came and took her away. That means that she was free of fear. She was hearing, chanting, remembering. And Indradumna Swami, of course, held a million miles away in Vrindavan on the phone. I don't know how much time he spent, a lot of time with her on the phone, helping her to transition. So it's possible even for us. And of course she was born in the movement, she has an advantage. But it all boils down to this remembrance. And what's described in the purport here is really what's Raga Anuga Bhakti. This is in our line, it's described in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And who is our main Raga Anuga Bhakta is Srila Prabhupada himself. If we follow in he's the one who's telling us, do this, distribute books, go on Harinam, you know, all this stuff, deity worship, everything. And saying, and if you do it nicely, you'll come back to Godhead, or you'll go back to Godhead. That means you'll be reinstated in your Sarup city. That's mentioned here. What is mukti in Sanskrit? Who knows the verse from the Bhagavatam? Exactly. It's not just getting free from birth, old age, disease, and death, and merging into the Brahman. That's anathema. You know the word anathema? That's horrible for devotees to even think about. Because in order to have bhakti, you have to have Bhagavan and the bhakta and the process of bhakti. In the Brahmajyoti, you don't have any of that. You're not there really in your form. You're just there as a spirit, and Krishna is certainly not there in the Brahmajyoti in his personal form. So where is it? There's no bhakti. So Kaivalyam Nadakayate. This is the verdict of Prabodhananda Saraswati. So what is mukti? Mukti is bhakti, perfected bhakti. Mukti hitva anyata rupam. What does that mean? Hitva means giving up other forms. In other words, these are our other forms. In this one lifetime, we'll have many other of these forms. Little baby form, you know, adolescent form, right? We're going through, Krishna describes at the beginning of the Gita. None of them are us, but every time we're in that form, we think, oh, this is who I am. Now I know who I really am. You know? No, that's not. So Mukti, in the second chapter, is kind of a little table of contents, right? In the 10th chapter, they tell you all the 10 subjects. And one of them is Mukti. Hitba anyata, giving up all other forms, and swarupena vivastiti. To be situated firmly, eternally, forevermore, in your swarup. Swarup siddhi means your actual form. If we're eternal souls, and the soul ultimately is a person, right? We have a form, just like Krishna is a pure soul, not pure spirit, but he has the form and activities and everything else. So we also have that. We've long forgotten it. It's all buried, but it's in there. So by the process of devotional service, you discover that. That's what it means to go back to Godhead. Even as Prabhupada says here, even without dying, the body may still be alive, but you're already there. Your consciousness is there. You're living there in Goloka Vrindavan on two planes. Prabhupada described he was living. He said, I'm not really here on 2nd Avenue. I used to go up and down 2nd Avenue all the time. I used to drive there on my way back to and from Long Island. And it's just as described, and just as you hear, if you hear those early lectures, you know, he insisted on having the door open so anyone who would come in, it's inviting, you know. That means you get all that noise on the street, you know, the trucks and starting their engines and the brakes, you know, and then the little kids running around. Have you ever heard those lectures? The 66 lectures have a certain special flavor. So much distraction, but Prabhupada said, no, I'm not, I'm on the bank of the Yamuna, you know. He's living there because that's where his consciousness is at. And within, he's serving Krishna in his specific swarup. That's the perfection. But in the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you feel that urgency to help others, always, real, you know, devotees. And so therefore, Prabhupada, alone amongst the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta, came and took the trouble of spreading it outside of India, and it was a glorious success. So this is our line, and this here, you know, described this quote from Bhaktisiddhanta, different levels of, or different intensities of remembrance, advancement, you know, what does that really mean for us? I don't know, I haven't experienced it. But that's the depth, so absorbed in thinking of Krishna that, you know, you're in samadhi. You're not, there's no other reality for you. And I'm telling you, we have so much facility for that through the sound vibration. The Bhagavatam itself gives you the instruction, the information, and also it's the means. The Bhagavatam is so many prayers, so many wonderful experiences. You know, Prabhupada gave us this, you know, the Queen Kunti prayers. He so much loved those, you know. And you notice that when Gaura Keshava gives class, he always quotes Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Just meditating on Krishna. Vasudevaya, different names, you know, as we learned from the song, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's song. The names contain the different pastimes. Nanda Nandana, Namanita Taskara. Hare Krishna, welcome. We'll have, yeah, we're going to continue class for maybe a minute or two more. All right, so I've gone on and on. Is there any questions, comments on these subject matters? Go ahead. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.
You had mentioned, Swarup Siddhi. Is that something that we just spontaneously remember, or is it something that happens like around the time of death so that we can transition in that identity?
So
when does that
Swarup Siddhi is unchangeable. That's your perfect form. Another Swarup, you know, that's your Swarup means your real form. It could be a coward boy, it could be a coward girl, it could be one of the elder gopis, you know. And each one, of course, has a acharya, has a perfect example of that. Mother Yashoda for parental rasa, and then and then there's some listed here, Bhaktisiddhanta, Sudam, Sridam, you know, for friends on the same level, and there's some friends who are more like servants, you know, like that. So there's all these varieties of rasa with Krishna, and one of them is our original rasa. It's our preferred way of relating to Krishna that is eternal. We've long forgotten it, but it's still there. And so by hearing Krishna Lila, you may get attracted to a certain pastime, a certain person in Krishna Lila, and then we should favor hearing about them and their pastime, because this is nourishing our own Swarup Siddhi. That's the classic Raganuga idea, you know, is to associate with someone who's in your own rasa, and then hear constantly of Krishna's Lila from that person who's ecstatically attracted, and to pick it up. It's like association, you know. What is that line in the Bhagavad Gita that's kind of taken? Sangat sanjayate kama. You know, that by your association you develop your desire. You know, I mean, in that verse it means a little something else. You know, by your attraction for something material will expand into ardent desire for it if you keep associating with it and try to enjoy it. That's in that concept. But that sanjat is simply telling us the importance of association, and also at a certain point who we associate with. And this is one of the reasons Prabhupada, you know, was so adamant to set up Mayapur and Vrindavan Dham, because he knew that there, the very air and the water and everything is saturated with Lord Chaitanya's pastimes and Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, which are ultimately not different. But it's but he meant the ideal, is what he himself followed. He didn't retire there. He was in Vrindavan, but he wasn't retired. Many of his godbrothers, they kind of retired there. But he wasn't retired, even though he was getting elderly. He had this mission. He was writing books, writing them back to Godhead, distributing it, and running to Delhi to do something, So he was there, but then finally he had to leave in order to fulfill the desire of a spiritual master. But although he left physically, he's still there in his heart. The remembrance is constant. So that Swarup Siddhi is in there, and it's just covered by the process of purification, hearing and chanting and remembering. We become aware of it, and we cultivate it, and finally we're living in it even before we leave the body. And that's why great devotees, the prospect of leaving the body is not at all scary, because they're going back to Godhead. And we saw that, I was explaining, and and Prabhupada, of course, you could see that and experience it. So that's what Swarup Siddhi is. Sometimes called Siddhadeha is also another word for it. Haribol, go ahead.
In one of the passages that you read, it talked about living in Vrindavan.
Yeah.
So what's the better choice, to live in Vrindavan or to stay in your temple and continue your service?
Well, I don't know. No, I shouldn't say that. No, Prabhupada made it very clear that there's two things going on with the dhams that he established, especially Mayapur and Vrindavan, and that is he wanted devotees to try to go there, if possible, even during his time. That there were the first big Gaur Purnima festival was in 73. I think there was one in 72, but in 73 a lot more devotees came. But he didn't want devotees to stay there as, young devotees. It says you go out and you serve Lord Chaitanya and spread the message. And then when it's time for you to retire, when the body just won't, you really can't do much, then you can come and stay there. And it should be a facility for that. That was the idea. Prabhupada says, I listen to tapes every day, and he's describing, one of the great series is Prabhupada in Bombay. And some of you may know, that I kind of picked out these 8 verses near the beginning of Kapila Dev's teachings to his mother. And it's all about sadhu sangha. The famous verses are there, Tatik Shiva Karunika, who is the sadhu, he's always tolerant and merciful, he's kind of everyone. So Prabhupada's giving a lecture on that, those verses, and it's just in the, you all know about the big fight in Bombay, get the land, right? And he's talking about how Indians, because he's speaking in India, says, Bharata Bhumini Janma Sar, that one should perfect his life, everyone who's got the wonderful gift of being born in Vrindavan, and then try to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. In other words, you have a special facility. Finally, it's taken off. I don't know, 70 or 80% of the movement is in India now, in terms of book distribution, temples, devotees, But that's not to say that, we don't have an important part to play also. But at that time, it was just starting. And Prabhupada made it clear that these temples, of course, the temple in Bombay is not in a dham, if you will, but it's so important for attracting Indians to take up their own thing, and some of them to also become preachers. And we see, they also travel. We've had our own people come from Pune and give lectures here. So when living in Vrindavan, one should live in Vrindavan. Prabhupada made it very clear that one should visit Vrindavan and take full advantage of the atmosphere there and the temples, and try, and to kind of it's not a vacation from devotional service, but it's a way of resetting yourself, getting all enlivened. There's so much chanting and hearing and the parikrams and everything. And then go back to your temple and with that renewed enthusiasm to preach and perform the other services and continue with the thing. That's what he expected and he wanted. So, you know, that's happening now. Of course, the pandemic is over. Well, not completely over, but it's devotees are traveling again a lot, and you know we can go there. So that's the idea. Any other discussion?
Hare Krishna.
Okay, we have one more here, and then we'll ask. Okay.
Okay, I can wait. No problem.
Okay,
Krishna. So about Smaranam, we often hear that it translates as remembering, but how can we understand what that means, remembering? Is it that we're reminded that we're following Krishna, or is it all of a sudden throughout the day I just remember Krishna's Leelas, and you know, how does it work? Because sometimes...
Well, that's what this purport is all about. There's a progression. There's a progression. In a very important sense, hearing and chanting is remembering. I mean, unless you're really spaced out, you know. But I mean, that's I'll tell you one good way to increase remembrance is to memorize. Memorize. Take the trouble. You can start out with a real nice nectar sloka, Maduram, Maduram, Babadasi, but it's very easy to memorize. Or even easier one, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama Eva Kevalam. You know, these are very important verses, but and Prabhupada said that's another thing that happened. This session on the second canto in Japan that I mentioned. Prabhupada had the devotees memorize the verses that they were. And it's about 6 or 8 of them, like I quoted. So they're all memorizing, and then each time the class come, they would have to chant them. You know, so sometimes the classes would go on, you know, as they're struggling to remember. But he had some very important instructions on the importance, if possible, to remember. He also says that we should get all of Kunti's prayers, you know, down. And it's not very difficult. I know it sounds, oh my God, I don't think I can hardly pronounce, you know. But I can help you. That's what the Sanskrit pronunciation guide is for. And it opens up a whole treasure chest. It's just, you know, just the Gita verses, I say just the Gita, they're all perfect, you know. Just you know, Dehinosmin yata dehi, that's often the first verse. And it encompasses such an important principle, you know, and it's such a wonderful way Krishna said, and says, oh yeah, that makes sense. I remember I was 5 years old, I remember that, you know. And then immediately you can say, yeah, I'm the same person, but I'm a different body, therefore I'm not the body. It's like a wonderful... So that, both for preaching and for one's own enlivenment, and just for ways of remembering Krishna, the memorization, and it's not impossible, you know, and it's if with practice you can learn it, and it's just you know, there's nothing like it. So that it's not that there's either hearing and chanting or remembering. They're overlapping. Hearing and chanting, discussing, that's you're remembering. And the idea is you'll take it with you. You know, you'll take it with you. In other words, then you'll spontaneously remember. And also deity worship. That Prabhupada said, you come morning, evening, you want us to come evening, and you see the deities, then after a while you think of them all the time. You know, especially if you're serving and you're sacrificing, you know, like that. What's this big of dressing? How can you forget? Okay, one more, and then you're on, Vijay.
Just a quick question. So, watching and following Prabhupada when he's taking prasadam,
yeah.
is he primarily doing remembering when he's eating and taking prasadam? I've just wondered what. Do you know?
He's always remembering. The point is coming to the point of constant remembrance.
Right.
So yes, there's this one scene where he's taking prasadam, and that's all that's happening, right? Yeah. Yes, I remember that. And Yadubar is announcing and saying this is one of the most wonderful meditations on Prabhupada. So what is he thinking though? Well, he's who can know exactly what's going on in his mind? Yeah. But he's on the bank of the Yamuna with Krishna. You know, he's there in Vrindavan. He's there with Krishna, experiencing and tasting the devotion that went into it, just as Krishna did. You know, I'm not going to try to speculate on what's, but he's in a transcendental state. And in other words, not only cooking and offering the prasadam with devotion, but also taking prasadam with devotion. That's what it's meant to be. That's meant to be a meditation also. Ultimately, every breath, everything we do should be thinking, Kayena Vacha Manasindriya. This is a verse in the 11th canto. Narayanaya iti samarpayetam. Whatever we're doing, every step we take, every breath we take, every word we take, this is an offering to Krishna. This is service to Krishna. You know, and if it's not in the realm of service to Krishna, well, we shouldn't be doing it. But I mean, you know, we're safe in Bhagavatam class, obviously, you know, unless your mind is a million miles away, you know. But if you're, you know, that's why, that's the way, you know, way it works. You start chanting, there's so many offenses, so much imperfection, mind is wandering, but you keep doing it anyway, in spite of the offenses. How much time we've read in the morning, you know. Don't stop. Oh, I'm so offensive, I can't chant. No, no, no. Keep chanting, you know, and praying that you give up the offenses. And the prayer is very important. And Vandanam, because we're going to get to Vandanam in a few times, and I'll just start with this. Vandanam has 3 elements. There's 3 elements to Vandanam. That's why sometimes it's a little confusing. You just said bowing down, offering obeisance, Vandanam. Yeah, and then another time I said praying. But that's it. Praying, the prayers of Bhagavatam, you'll find there's obeisances. Queen Kunti begins and ends her prayers with the word Namaste. Namaste Purusham Tvagam, and the last verse is Namaste. So bowing down is definitely there. Glorification is also there. And also a prayer, what we commonly call a prayer of request. That's Vandanam, full Vandanam. And it makes sense. You glorify Krishna, oh, you're so powerful, you can do everything, you know, so please, I'm such a rascal, even you can deliver me, you know. But if you, so the glorification sets up the prayer. Same thing with Tulsi. Anyone who takes shelter of you has his wish fulfilled, please fulfill my wish. May I always serve Radha and Krishna, right? So that's a little extra there. Okay, you're on, Vijay.
Yes, Dravida Prabhu, thank you very much. You're most kind. Dandavat pranams.
Dandavat
Prabhu,
pranams. Go ahead.
You recited number 3 Smaranam related to the different parts of the purport.
Yeah.
And I see that in this part number 3 related to Smaranam, Shukadeva Goswami is telling to King Parikshit that even those who desire all material enjoyment, the recommendation for them is also to constant chant the holy name of the Lord. So based on this, my exact question is, what is the advantage for a person who desires material enjoyment to chant the holy name, the holy names of the Lord, when we all know very well that the Lord is not meant for fulfill our material enjoyment?
The point is that yes, you have all these material desires, and we want to sublimate them. Vairagya is important. So the means is chanting the holy name. So it's not the whole point of the Etan Nibidyamanam is it's like akama sabakamo va moksha kamo dhanati. It's the same idea. Whether you're full of material desires or free of material desires, you want mukti, it doesn't matter. With great intensity, tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham padam. The intensity is important. If you're just doing niyamagraha, just showing up, you know, but you're really not there, your mind is elsewhere, then you're not going to get the benefit. So the thing is, we're at war. In one sense, we're at war with our material mind. Mind is so powerful, right? Kama, dinam, katina, katita. There's that verse. There's all the lust, anger, greed, illusion. They're my masters. All these. But now my intelligence has awoken by association with great saints, and you know, who are going to speak from Bhagavatam, or we're associating with Narada Muni right now. When you read his words, you know? We should know that. Then your intelligence can become stronger to control the mad mind who is full with all these material desires. And if you don't feed it, and rather you engage the mind in thinking of Krishna and hearing and so forth, then quickly, it says, Vasudevi Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Piyojateha Janayat Yashu Vairagyam Jnanam Chayirahoitukam. Then by even beginning Vasudeva Bhakti is Krishna Bhakti, then very quickly you get detachment. Detachment doesn't mean renunciation, means you just give it up, you go far away from it. That's tyag. You know, it's much more important to get vairagya, which means even in the midst of all of the temptations, you don't like it anymore. You're full with, you know, serving Krishna, you're getting taste for the holy name, you're serving. And you know, the old verse by Yamunacharya, Yadabhati Mama Jaitak, ever since I've been tasting the nectar of serving Krishna's lotus feet, and even when I think about all my experiences as a king with, you know, the harem, oh yeah, my lips turn into taste and ice, as Prabhupada immortally said on the tape. I spite at it. He spits at the thought. So that's the idea, is that the whole point here is that the list of everybody, those who desire material enjoyment, those who are self-satisfied, but then constant chanting a holy name is recommended. In other words, whatever you are, whoever you are, whatever situation, chant Hare Krishna. It's the remedy of the age. There's this verse, I got to remember, it's in the Mukunda Mala. Hey Lokashanatapasud. Hey people, listen. I have the medicine for the disease of birth and death. It's the holy name of Krishna. Take it. It's recommended by Yajnavalkya. Yeah, you should take it. So that's the whole mission. Lord Chaitanya went, you know, for the masses, chant Hare Krishna, take prasadam, you know, and you know, as you take prasadam, listen to a tape. You know, there's philosophy. The point is, the philosophy is there, but the main thing is chant and dance and experience. And when you experience, you become curious. Oh, what is that? You know, we have these books, right? So the whole program is there. So that's the idea, is that from whatever situation, this is special for Kali Yuga. Kali Doshana de Rajanasti Eka Mahodgara. This Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults. Do we need to illustrate it? Just go outside, you know. But there's one very special quality. Kirtanava Krishnasa Mukta Sangha Paramvajet. That just by kirtan of the holy name of Krishna, of Krishnasa, Mukta Sangha, you become free from your entanglement of so much attachments. And attachment and aversion, they're the same, two sides of the same coin. And paramvajet, you go back to Godhead. That's what this movement is all based on. That one verse practically is expansion there. So that's the idea. In any situation, whoever you are, chant Hare Krishna and you'll be benefited. And that's the engine moving this movement forward.
Yes, so in accordance with the answer you just gave me, those who desire all material enjoyment are in a diseased condition.
They are in a what? Disease condition. Absolutely.
And the cure for the disease is to chant.
That's the cure. And everything that follows the chanting, where you say, oh, let me go to that Hare Krishna temple. I just been chanting Hare Krishna. And the deity worship and the books, of course, and the association, everything that follows. But the chanting is the basis. Once you take that up, then your material life is finished.
Yes, thank you very much.
All glory to the
Prabhupada. Very helpful, wonderful answer to my question. Hare Krishna.
Hare